Welcome back on board the Starship, and we are joined by the Starship pet Ulysses. Okay, it's time again for the interesting person of the week, and we've got Sam Wright again, who runs the Probe UFO and Paranormal Conference in Blackpool, and he's talking here about what happened after the Kennedy assassination.
A chap named Bill Holden, who worked for Air Force One, he came over about 14 years ago, and he spoke on the Kennedy assassination because he worked under 5 presidents. And when Kennedy was assassinated, when Nick Johnson was being sworn in on the plane, the coffin was brought back onto the plane. They took off, and they'd only been in flight for about 30 minutes when the top security man said there was a fault with one of the engines. The plane landed, and he, being the top bloke as a sergeant in security, he was told to go to the cargo area, and the coffin was taken off, and another coffin was brought back on its place. And they only found out days later that in that coffin there were only stones. So when that funeral was taking place with millions of people watching, and the coffin was being lowered, there was no body in that coffin, just stones.
Very interesting, I think you'll agree. Okay, which brings us to the interesting sign. There's somebody at the airlock, just one minute. Hope you've behaved yourself. Yes, the interesting scientific fact of the week is a thimbleful of a neutron star would weigh over, if you could get a thimbleful of a neutron star, it would weigh over 100 million tons. And we're talking with Alan Turnbull, who is an expert on UK military bases. Now, I'm interested in, because you get quite a lot of sensitive information but through your research. Say you get something that you think is really hot. What do you do to, do you just put it on the site, or do you, have you got a means of checking things?
That would be clearly irresponsible. Essentially what I do is the same as any journalist down in London does. If I come into an area of research that highlights something quite important, dangerous, whatever you want, I'll run it by what's known as the D-Notice Committee, but more properly it's the Defence Press and Broadcasting Advisory Committee, which is a bit of a mouthful. Most people still refer to it as the D-Notice Committee.
Okay.
And it's simply the liaison between the Ministry of Defence, government, and all the security services.
Is there an email address that you send it to, or do you ring them? Or
it's normally by telephone, but
yeah,
there is an email address as well. And in fact, on very few occasions I've had to do so. Right. I once, for example, ran a particular image past the D-Notice Committee that I'd actually annotated with a graphic and a description, and they said, well, we'd rather you didn't include that particular graphic, but we're okay with the rest of it.
Right, okay.
Obviously I can't go into details of what that image was, but and at no stage has the D-Notice Committee ever approached me and said, oh, you must...
Yeah, I think that's probably the way that I would prefer to do it. Wait for them to come to me, because I'm not as, shall we say, what's the word I'm looking for?
Reckless?
Yeah, I'm probably a bit more reckless. I don't know if that's the word. Because I think that a lot of the information that I uncover and I find, I don't really care if it's sensitive, because I believe it needs to be told. Because I think you have a different view of the intelligence agencies in general to what I do. That I think they are, to a degree, doing things that they shouldn't. Let's just leave it at that. and you perhaps don't share that view.
Well, I mean, it's not. It's just that us two we're totally different animals, really, because you're interested in a particular alternative,
non-official versions of.
Whereas I'm just carrying on what essentially any other journalist does, and that is investigative work, research.
Which brings us nicely, Alan, to the head of MI6. You were.
I was waiting for that subject to come up. Yeah.
Yeah, you were involved in discovering his Facebook account. Is that? Tell us about that, Alan.
I'll just need to take a sip of water. Yeah. I mean, there was a big hullabaloo about that in summer last year, and it was a scoop. I managed to get a world scoop, and as everyone remembers, it went right around the world. There was pictures of the new MI6 boss in his Speedos on the beach somewhere.
Okay.
And
we're not that kind of show, so I'm not going to show that image or any of the other images that were revealed of his wife and his daughter. But tell us about
Well, it was simply that I through my research magic, found a way into the world of the MI6 chief, and it was simply because his wife had not posted anything damaging. It was just that the fact that she'd not put the correct privacy settings on the Facebook account. As simple as that. And that's a lesson to everyone who uses Facebook and every other website out there, that you've got to get the privacy settings.
If you don't want the whole world to see it, you can need to set
there was no malice intended. I was just after a research exclusive.
I mean, some people might say that even if you have got your privacy settings set on Facebook, the people who own Facebook actually can dabble into your personal information.
They can,
But so you then gave that story to, was it the Daily Mail?
It was the Mail on Sunday, and that was their. It was actually nominated for Scoop of the Year in the Press Awards. It lost out to the huge story of the year, which was the MP's expenses.
Okay.
But
so this is the head of MI6 running around the beach with his trunks on, and we're not supposed to know the identity of this guy. Is that? Because they did used to keep the identity secret, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, for several generations of boss now that we've known the identity. It's obviously I'm off the Christmas card list at MI6, and
really,
yeah,
I thought you sometimes get invited down, do you know?
No, you're in with a lot of people that follow my website think I'm somehow involved in the murky world of whatever goes on in Whitehall.
Right.
That may be due to my fault, really, that I've overdone the explanation of my relationship with the D-Notice system. And it's just, any journalist knows the D-Notice system. They go through it, and it's a way of actually allowing scoops, news exclusives to go out, but not compromising really important things like live SAS operations. For example, rescuing hostages in Sierra Leone. You don't want a news exclusive going out on that while the operation is still live, because people's lives are at risk. So that's essentially what the D-Notice system is all about.
And another story that you were involved in, or you found tidbits of information, was again, it's more sleazy, the Max Mosley, who's the Formula One boss, who basically was going to parties with friends.
Yes, and they weren't Tupperware parties, are they?
No. So tell us about that, Alan.
Well, I don't normally sully myself with
tabloidy,
sleazy. Yes, I rise above it. But on this occasion, I thought I'd dabble a little bit. So I entered the murky world of
tabloid journalism.
What is the plural of dominatrix? Is it dominatrices?
Pass.
Perhaps we could have a quiz on that. But I provided key research, obviously not the main story, but I provided a certain nuance to the story that revealed the person behind the website who...
So tell us the story from the beginning then, just quickly, not that we want to dwell on this for too long.
I realised that one particular document that I found on the mistress's website...
So this was a mistress
Abby.
allegedly of Max Mosley.
Well, she was just
Can we say that?
no, she wasn't a mistress of Max Mosley. I can hear the lawyers in the background.
Okay.
She was a party hostess, shall we say?
Party hostess. And he attended the parties.
The particular party, yeah.
Yeah, or the party. But he wanted a tale. He hired a private detective or firm of private detectives
that's
to find out who was spilling information.
Yeah.
And it turned out that this woman's husband was actually an MI5 agent.
Yeah, and that, of course all the conspiracy theorists went into overdrive then, thinking that it was a set-up job. But in fact, it was purely. I think they'd run into financial difficulties, and he'd been naughty and not telling his bosses about
the
his
MI5
wife.
agent had been naughty in that the MI5 didn't know that his wife was
precisely
advertising her services, etc. So what happened to the MI5 agent? He realised he'd been followed because of his counter-terrorism training or whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
And then he alerted.
He found himself being tailed by this mystery vehicle, and it turned
which was
out
Mosley's employee.
It was Mosley's private
agent.
detective. Yeah.
Yes, and then he alerted the anti-terror squad or something.
Obviously, the MI5 officer would have alerted his bosses back at Thames House and said, "We've got a problem. I'm being followed."
Yeah.
So they obviously found the vehicle details and phoned them up, and it was this private detective agency.
Yeah.
And they said, "Why on earth are you following this vehicle?" And
yeah,
he said, "This is why." And then the whole story exploded. Then
right. And didn't Mosley sue not because he was at the party, but because of what he was wearing at the party? They got that wrong or something. Did they say that he was dressed as a Nazi or something like that?
Yeah, it was the specific.
So he didn't deny
Nazi
going
overtones.
Right. Yeah. Okay. The mind boggles.
Well, I mean, my small involvement in that story was that I provided key forensic internet research for a particular aspect of the story, and that I found the person's name who designed the mistress's website by certain magical means. But I thought I'd actually found the name of the MI5 officer who was married to the one. I mean, that would have been massively explosive, that story. But it turned out to be just an associate, a friend, who happened to be a film director based in London. Okay. So.
Okay. And what about the future, Alan? How do you see your website panning out? Have you got any plans, or what are your objectives for that?
I feel as though I've been on a bit of an incredible journey with the website. Started off quite humble beginnings. I've managed to hone my research skills, talents, whatever you want to call it, and I've got to the stage now where, as I've described earlier, that I've been responsible for several major research exclusives that have resulted in front page sort of splashes in the Sunday papers. I'd like to expand on that and actually treat. Obviously, I'll continue doing the website from an entertainment point of view and a technical, almost educational point of view. But I want to actually use the skills that I've developed over all these years since 2003. I've achieved all these results in the recent years. I want to develop that further and carry on in the world of investigative journalism. I've ended up attending drinks receptions in Whitehall to do with the D-Notice Committee, where I've met not one but two Directors General of MI5 itself. Okay.
And can you remember who they were?
Yes. I mean, it was a bizarre situation. I met Dame Eliza Manningham-Buller. Yeah. I mean, that was.
Well, she's written a few books now, hasn't she? About
no, that was Stella Remington.
Yes, Stella Remington. Have you met Stella Remington?
No.
No, you haven't. Right. Okay.
But I mean, the bizarre spectacle of being introduced to Dame Eliza Manningham-Buller. It was a bit like. I guess Danny LaRue being introduced to the Queen at the London Palladium. I mean, admittedly...
Don't put yourself down, Alan.
Well, with hindsight, it was a mistake me launching into a couple of verses of Mother Kelly's Doorstep. But,
right.
I'd had a few, you know.
Right, okay. Right, and do you think that the heads of MI5 and MI6 are informed of everything, or do you think you're aware of the phrase "the need to know," where the information is compartmentalised? Do you think that the heads of MI5 and MI6 are like the Prime Minister, just figureheads and don't have detailed knowledge of the comparted projects going on? Or do you think they oversee it all? What do you think?
Now, you're straying into the land of New World Order and...
Yeah, well,
yeah.
you don't want to answer that question then?
No, I have an opinion on. I think we don't need to worry about the New World Order. It's the old world order that always has been and always will be the problem. In that a few select elite at the top of society control everything that goes on.
And do you think there's a secret society influence over the intelligence agencies?
It always used to be. I remember being at school and being told that you could not rise above a certain rank in the police force without being a Freemason or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is actually insulting to a lot of hard-working people who pass all the inspectors' exams, etc., and achieve promotion. The legitimate route.
This is probably where you and I would part company, and you know we could.
I certainly agree that it oils a lot of cogs, doesn't it? Being a member of a certain fraternity. But I would guess that more secret deals are done on the golf course than at the Grand Lodge.
Okay. All right, and Alan, is there anything else you want to add?
Well, I'd just like to say that it's very kind of you to invite me on this programme, because I'm not your normal sort of guest, am I really?
Well,
I've not got any UFO stories to tell you. I mean, I've had a few, not so much out-of-body experiences, but I've had lots of out-of-head experiences.
Right. Was that alcohol-induced, or...?
It probably, yes.
Right. Okay, then, well, we'll get you beamed back down to planet Earth, and thanks very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, and it just remains for me to say, keep your eyes on the skies and your feet on the ground, and tell all your friends about this show.
The Rich Planet Starship is sponsored by Geared4.com online bikes, clothing and accessories.